Hello everybody, it's Chaz in Omaha. Season 2 for Last Epoch is right around the corner. So now is the time to go ahead and get yourself set up so that you can blast right when the season drops. In this video, I'm going to showcase how to build a simple yet comprehensive base filter. This filter is meant as a starting point for each new character. So you log in, you find the base filter and you duplicate it, and then you modify it for that character, and you never touch this base one. So here's how it looks when the base filter is done. For those that know how to do this, you can just kind of pause the video and take a look at this and use that. For those that don't know, I'm going to go ahead and go step by step from the beginning and show you how to create this. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Step 1 is make a new filter. So you hit this little green button, create a new filter from scratch. And name this, I'm going to name it AA so it starts at the top of my list, but I would just name it base filter. And right here I would probably put in here duplicate this, do not modify, right? And you can color it however you want, it doesn't really make any difference. Alright, so step 1. You want to be able to hide generic trash items. So we're going to start with hide, and then we're going to go with rarity and normal. Hide all normal items. And we're going to do the same thing for magic, and then do the same thing for, you guessed it, rare. Now, uncheck these. At the very beginning, you want these unchecked. And basically what you'll do is as soon as you have, gear everywhere, you hide this, and as soon as you don't care about these anymore, then you hide them. But you want to keep them unchecked. Okay, step 2. Early universal affixes. There are a few affixes, such as movement speed, void res, and physical res, that you want to get on your character right away to make your life easier. So we're going to go ahead and add these as a recolor. I'm going to use this horrible green, 70s, actually that's not 70s green, that's neon green. Where's the ugly 70s green? This thing, there we go. I use this ugly puke 70s green. And what we want to do here is we want to go to Affix. And then you can just type in here to search for it. You want physical resistance, so that's 1. And that's all you need to do. And then we can duplicate this a couple times. Now we want to do, instead of physical, we want to do void resistance. Ah, crap. That's right. We gotta uncheck the physical. Feels bad, man. So we got physical, void. This next one is optional. I always do this with poison, because there is one area where if you don't have any poison, you might get your face beat in a little bit, but it is a very short area, so this one's pretty optional. And then this is the most important one. Movement speed. Alright. And you want to keep these checked. And with these ones, as soon as you have a solid amount of these resists, or you're past the part where these is a big deal, then you can just uncheck them as you play, yeah? I generally uncheck movement speed as soon as I get like a tier 3 or a tier 4 movement speed, then I won't care about this anymore. And then for void, physical, and poison, probably sometime around the end of Act 1 or the beginning of Act 2, I would uncheck these. Okay, step 3. This is the main meat of the filter. So what you want to do is you want to start with recolor, and you can use any color scheme you want, but my base one is dark blue. And you want to go to Fix, and you want to do Advanced Options. And I start with more or equal to tier 2. So at least one of these affixes on the item more or equal to 2. Now you want to put some basic things in here, and there's not very much, but there are a few things that basically everybody wants. Start by checking every single of the normal resists. Like that. And then you also want to put in movement speed. because everybody wants movement speed on their boots. So you can just leave that as 9 selected, leave it like this. I tend to rename this useful items. Let's see, one useful affix tier 2. Now, later, you're going to make multiple of these. I just wanted to mention that. Okay, step 4, useless items. Now, the start of useless items is simply all the items that are specific to the class that you are not playing. So I would leave this blank as a basis, but just say hide all other class items. And when you go to use this filter, you just click everything that you're not. Okay? And the next hide useless things is just hiding useless drops. So you want to do item type, and you can just leave this blank because you don't really have anything right now specific that you want to put here, but like say for this character I'm playing here, he's using a two-handed staff, right? So I would go in here and I would remove all one-handed and every two-handed that's not a staff and every offhand, right? So from the very beginning, I would only want to see stabs, right? Okay. So that's it for useless items. Step 5 would be idols. So there are 3 things we want for idols. One is just hiding all of them. This one is kind of optional. Sometimes I don't use this one, sometimes I do. It depends like how quick I want to move, I guess, but you can just check all of them and hide all idols. Next, you want show, and then you also want to go to idols, but you want to go to affix, and for this one, this is basically just going to be relevant idols for almost everybody. So go ahead and go to general idols. You can check whatever you want in here, but for general things that are useful, I generally do health, all of the resists, and vitality. I think that's it. So I would go with that. You're gonna alter this for whatever you want when you make your new character, but this is a good starting point for this. Let's see, let's name this to show relevant idols. Actually, let's go with Recolor on this, just so that we can see the color. It makes it easier to read. And then this last one is Recolor, and I use the yellow for this one. Where's the yellow? This guy. And these are important idols. These are like build defining idols, yeah? You can go ahead and add condition affix, and then you leave it blank. There. Yeah. Gotta change this. Special idols. That's a good name. Okay, that's it for idols. And if you're like me and sometimes don't want to use this one, you know, just don't use it. Okay, step 6 is to show things that you always want to see. What are the things that you always want to see? Well, first, you always want to see unique and set items. Now, it used to be, prior to this season, that most set items were total trash and nobody cared unless you just kind of wanted to have them. But that's no longer true because you can shatter them and put those shards on things. So you definitely always want to see unique and set items. Okay, so for the next thing is you want to see all exalted items. And the way you do that is by just going to affix, go to advanced, more or equal than 6, leaving this as at 1, and then going down this affix list and clicking everything. Now there are some affixes that are actually always useless. But if you don't really know which thing that is, it's better to just say everything. And you can ignore idols because idols don't have tiers. They're experimental. Okay. Show tier 6 exalted items. Okay, and then you also want to show experimental. So we just go with affix, any of them, and then experimentals right at the bottom. Now, if you know that there are some experimentals that you just aren't interested in using, then, you know, feel free to change that as you want, but it's probably safer to just show all experimentals if you don't know. Okay, step 7. Recolor. I like it to be a dark orange for no particular reason. And what this is meant for is relevant plus skill items. So like when you first start the game, finding plus skill to like your main attack or something is generally insanely useful. And you can just leave this blank for now. You just want to fill it in for each specific character. Like for this Stormbolt Druid, I would certainly want plus to Gathering Storms and probably plus to Tornado and Werebear so that I could get it online faster. And then the last thing for our base filter is Recolor, and I make this one red so it's really standout. Wait, we don't need that. Oh no, yeah. Advanced, more equal to tier 7. And then you have to do that same thing you did with that. Actually, now that I think about it, it would be a lot easier to just duplicate this thing. And then put it on the top. Show tier 7. Actually, not show, recolor, right? Red. So even if the tier 7 item isn't ever going to be useful for your character, it's really good idea to pick up tier 7s, because unless it's an actually just totally useless like minion dodge affix, it's really good to keep tier 7 as fodder for legendary potential items. And that's especially true in this next season because you're going to be able to guarantee at least one affix going into your LP uniques to make legendaries. Yeah. So that's it for a base filter. Alright, so we've got the base filter out of the way. Now I'm just going to go ahead and go over some more advanced filter things that I like to use, just in case you want to be more granular with your filter, and maybe it'll give you some ideas. So the first thing that I like to do, and this is particularly true at the beginning of a season because you have no shards whatsoever, is a rule that recolors to, I use white, no particular reason why. Every single affix that is level of skill, just all of them. Now you don't have shatter things right at the beginning, but eventually you're going to have basically infinite shatters on your first character. And what this does is that it does a few things. First of all, if you make a new character, this will give you shards for all of the skills that you may or may not use, which comes in handy because they're pretty rare. And if you don't have these shards, then you can't increase them for your future characters. So recolor all plus skill shard items. Yeah? And then the other thing that it does is that when you drop an item and it has a skill shard on it, but you don't have shards for it, you can't roll away from it with a glyph of chaos if you don't have the shards. So it's a really good idea, I think, at the beginning of a season to just have this probably right around here beneath tier 6. And then once you have enough money or runes, shattering runes and rune removal to deal with these, you turn this on and you just shatter every single plus skill shard item you find. Okay, so the next one I like to do is I like to have a rule for shattering just like things that I want to shatter. Now, at the very beginning of a season, just like the plus skill thing, there's some shards that you're going to want and you're just not going to have them, and they are kind of rare and you don't know when you're going to need them. So hybrid health one is a big one that comes to mind. And then another one, you could probably put movement speed, because you don't want to run out of these. That would be terrible. And then another one would be the cleanse, the belt cleanse thing that comes to mind. So I'd want to shatter these at the beginning. You can also use this shatter shard item hunt. You can also use this for just looking for shards that you know you need for your build that you probably don't have. There's a lot of affixes on helms and chests specifically that are really generally kind of just unique to a build or a skill, and you'd only want to use it for that character. So if you search for these and shatter them as you go, then you should have them by the time you get to the end game, which could be very important, right? Okay, so another one I like is to have just other build searches. Now, if you are the kind of person that only plays one character and doesn't care about alts, then you can pretty much just ignore this. But for me, I almost always have a couple builds that I'm trying to get items for. And this is particularly important for like if there's idols that they absolutely need, which is pretty common. Or you can also do this for like tier 6 or 7 of these specific items so that you have fodder for legendaries you know that they need. So I like to do this. You can put this one even above tier 7 if you really want to, but I would probably still just put it like maybe even above tier 6. I don't know, somewhere in here. It doesn't really matter. You can do whatever you want, but that's where I'd put it probably. And then you can also make a separate one that's like other build hunt idols. If you know that there's an idol, like you want to play Hammer Smite, there's certain idols you absolutely need, right? There's a build that I'm gonna be trying this next season where I really need that idol where when you hit, it spawns Thorn Totems, right? So that will be in here for me right at the beginning. Now here's another one that I like to use and just toggle it on and off as I play. It's basically just an Ascension searcher. So you can just leave the item type completely ambiguous, and it's just convenient to have this in place. And you would want to put this beneath like everything that matters. And basically what this is for, if you don't know how Last Epoch works, is you get these runes called Rune of Ascendance. And what you can do with these runes is you can put a non-unique item of any type into here and use the rune, and it'll turn it into a random set or unique of that same type. So if you are searching for, say, a Titan Heart, like this character would be, then what you do is you go into your Ascensions, you change the type to armor, body armor, and then you just leave it on, and then you just pick up every body armor that you basically just don't care about, and you throw it in there and ascend it and hope you get a good Titan Heart. Alright, and the last one for advanced that I recommend using, we have our hide useless drops, which is, you know, like if there's only one type of weapon you want. But I generally tend to go a little further at a certain point with most builds, especially for things like rings and necks and weapons, because you get to the point where like only certain base of those matter to you, right? So like let's just go with rings, because that's I do that one almost first, like almost every time. So we're gonna hide rings, and then, you know, like say this character absolutely needs crit, right? So we would just click all of these except for crit, and this would be the only ring we'd want, right? And we can just call this hide useless rings, right? So we create that, and then I would recommend you put it just right above hide useless drops. And you can do that with every type. I tend to do this like probably right around like I don't know, Legon, I start doing this probably because you you might know what you need, especially for like the base, right? Like you know you need mana, so you just kind of need this. And you maybe you say your character's really fast, so you don't need movement speed, you don't care about those rings, so you want to hide those. Yeah. So that's all I have for what I use as a base filter. So the last step in the series of base filter is to actually use the base filter on a new character. We're going to build a filter I would actually use for this Stormbolt Druid, give or take. I'm not going to be real precise about it because, you know, it's just for an example. So this is the advanced base filter that I've created previously. It should look familiar to you. So the first step, duplicate, rename. So we'd call this Stormbolt Bear Guy. Zap, zap, zoom, zoom. And this looks kind of druidy. And that looks like lightning. Okay, cool. So now we can mess with this. So the first thing that you need to do when you get into these, you don't need to touch any of this, but you need to come up to this guy. And this is like a majority of your filter. So what I would do is I would open the affixes and just start from the top and literally just go down. So we know this character wants attunement, and I don't know if it wants vitality, but let's just say it does. Let's say it's okay with vitality on like boots or something. Okay, so we want those. Cool. It's definitely not melee. So spell, alright, it wants spell damage, it likes cast speed, it likes this, it likes all those. Alright, cool, we like those. No throwing, doesn't do bow, damage type. Elemental, it doesn't want that. Elemental's weak, it doesn't want elemental. Lightning, actually we'll keep elemental. We're gonna pick elemental because while you're leveling, that's, you know, could be useful. So elemental and lightning, none of this, lightning, pen's good. We don't do any dot stuff. There's no shared stuff, so we don't want that. Alright, cool. General, we like crit strike multiplier, we like crit chance, we don't want dot. Increased stun chance is actually good for lightning. None of that does anything. Alright, this is a health stacker, so we want all of these. It doesn't block, we don't care about that. Resistances, we like armor on this guy, so we'll do increased armor. We'll leave all the resistances there. We don't care about any potion things, we don't care about dodge. We're not doing any health regen stuff. We don't use ward. Stun, we don't want those. Crit strike avoidance. We probably want that one. You generally want either this one or you generally want one of these three and not a mix. So leech, it doesn't need leech. It doesn't do parry. We want movement speed. We don't need cooldown. We're not doing reflect. Mana, we do want mana. We want both manas. Spell dodge image reduce. I mean, I don't think you'd use that, but we can keep it. This is a really good prefix. We need that one. We don't want minions. Ailments. We want shock. And we want shred armor. And frailty's fine. Most builds like frailty on some item later, eventually, unless they have it in a skill or something. Now, this is when it gets crazy. So class specific. You just open up your class, and I would suggest you just look at basically anything that might be good, because these are kind of rare. So even if you put it on there and you don't end up wanting it, it's probably fine and you can just delete it later. But if you don't see the item you want, that would be really bad, right? So let's see. We don't care about CDR. We don't care about totems. That's pretty good. We're in bear form a lot, so that's good. No minion stuff, no minion, no melee. Spell damage while transformed, that sounds good. Increase, we don't do the... Let's see, boar is good. That's the defensive one, right? I don't think we'd use that, but... Let's see, armor, no locust. None of this for vines. Critical strike chance with rampage. Well, we do rampage, but we don't actually hit with rampage or care about it. Let's see. We don't have minions, so we don't want the shared stuff. Let's see, level of tornado. And level of werebear form. And level of gathering storm. Leveling of maelstrom could be okay. Level of warcry could be okay. We probably won't use that. That's it. Okay, so that was it. Now that we've done that, we update it. Now here's the important part. You want to duplicate this 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you want to make sure that it's fixed before you duplicate this, or you're going to have a headache. So now what I do is I take this one, and my next level is light pink. And then I change this to 2. And then my next level is dark pink. And I change this to 3. And then my final level is red. And I change this to 4. Now what do we do with these? This one is for tier 6. And we just make it, you know, probably dark purple. Instead of light purple, we'll make it dark purple. And this one, we can say useful exalted. And then this one, I'm sure you've guessed, I will make this red because I like red for really good stuff. And we will change this to 7. And we will change this to useful tier 7. Now you want to move these up. So useful exalted goes above show exalted. And then useful tier 7 goes at the very top. Okay, so now that's the hard part. The next step is we want to hide other class items. So we are a primalist, so we don't want to hide primalist. Right? Cool. We're hiding every other class. Hide useless drops. So like we said before, this character never wants a one-handed weapon, and it only wants a staff. And it definitely doesn't want an offhand, so let's get rid of that crap. And then, just for the sake of argument, I don't ever do this at the beginning, but just for the sake of argument, let's say that we only want, let's just say that we only want the crit rings. And then, okay, so now we're on idols. This is my first character, so I'm not going to hide idols. I'm going to uncheck that. I want to just see all of them because who knows, I might find something cool. So now recolor relevant idols. I would normally have a build planner that I could look at, but I'll just look over here since I have these. I don't think there's anything particular other than resist that I care about that isn't like super important, so we can leave relevant how it is. But then for useful idols, there is, whoops, you need to go to Affixes. So there's a Stormbolt one. Bam, that one's important. And then there's also lightning. There's like a bunch of variants of lightning damage. Cold and lightning. Critical strike chance with lightning skills. Those are probably okay. And then general shared lightning is probably okay. Is that it? Is that all we have? Well, there's a health % one. We got those cold and lightning, yes, so we'll just add the health % one too. Health % idols tend to be pretty good unless you're a ward-based build. This will be just like in general, right? Yeah, so we'll just put both of these, whatever. There. So we got our idols. And there's only one experimental that I think I never got on this character. Yeah, I don't have it. But let's just go ahead and say that I only care about that one experimental. I think it's like the armor to dot one. Armor applies to dot. That's the one I wanted and I never got it. So we want that one. And then we finish this off with recoloring important plus skill items. And the really important ones are level of gathering. Oh yeah, you can just do this. Level of gathering storm and level of tornado. Oh, and maelstrom. These are all actually really important early on. Actually, these are all important early on. So I don't really remember which one we actually end up using, but they're all pretty important. Wait, where's tornado? There it is. There. All right. So now we are done. This is our filter forever. One thing I would mention about these is that eventually as you play, this blue one might get annoying. and you might want to change this to 3 or tier 4, because eventually a single tier 2 affix is kind of garbage, right? So we say one useful affix, we'll say tier 4. And then the same with the pink, maybe you need to have both of them be tier 3 for you to care. Right? That's what I would do. And then eventually we'll check these, eventually we'll uncheck all of these, and then we'll be good. Alright everybody, that's it for my tutorial on how to create a comprehensive and simple base filter for you to use for every character. I hope this information was useful, and I hope it helps you enjoy Season 2 of Last Epoch. Have a good one, everybody.